Airlines received the $50 billion aid package they asked for, but what's really in it? With revenue across the industry dropping to zero in some cases, without help from the government, many airlines were doomed to fail. While some costs have diminished with route reductions, airlines still have a slew of fixed expenses on their books, including aircraft leases, maintenance costs, and employee pay. The bailout funds are not free money. They come with some serious strings attached, including measures that prevent funds from going into investors and guarantee that cities both big and small stay connected. The major benefit is aimed at workers. $25 billion in the relief package is going to go to make sure about 750,000 employees don't get laid off. A central condition of the grants is airlines must not furlough staff and have to maintain current pay and benefits through September 30th. The goal is to not just benefit airline workers, but also their families and the overall economy. The funds will be divvied up between carriers based on how much they paid staff last year between April 1st and September 30th of 2019. The next major provision makes sure cities don't have their service cut. To qualify for the bailout funds, airlines must maintain a minimum level of service to cities within the U.S. The Department of Transportation released these guidelines that define minimum levels of service. 1. Cities served with 5 flights a week would need to maintain at least 1 flight per day, 5 days a week. A practical example, pre-corona American Airlines flew hourly flights between New York and Dallas. If it maintains 1 round-trip flight per day between the 2 cities, 5 days per week, that would meet the requirement for both New York and Dallas. 2, cities with flights fewer than 5 days a week would need to maintain at least 1 flight per week. If United's only flight to Flagstaff were a round trip between Denver and Flagstaff 3 times a week, the airline could reduce that to 1 day per week. 3, cities with multiple routes could reduce those routes as long as the minimums from guidelines 1 and 2 were still met. Delta had multiple daily flights from Green Bay, Wisconsin to other cities including Detroit, Minneapolis, and Atlanta. That service could be pared down to a single flight, at least 5 times weekly, between Green Bay and one of the other cities, such as Detroit. Delta could also choose to operate at least 5 flights weekly from GRB and distribute them to among various destinations. So what this means practically is that cities will never be completely cut off. There's always going to be 1 or 2 flights. Now, the amount of direct flights and connecting flights will be reduced, sometimes dramatically, depending on the city. The rich won't get richer. Airlines cannot pay investor dividends or engage in stock buybacks until 1 year after the loans are repaid. Executive raises and compensation are also limited, so we shouldn't see big bonuses like the ones handed out by banks bailed out in the financial crisis of 2008. Post-corona, airlines are likely to look a lot smaller and a lot greener. Despite the $50 billion aid package, airlines will no doubt be forced to shrink. While the package will help airlines stay in business, it does not cover the billions of dollars in lost revenue the companies must absorb in the months ahead. Routes have been slashed by more than 70% in some cases. It is unlikely we will see post-corona route availability surge back to pre-corona levels for years. Travelers might be stuck with more connecting flights. Thousands of planes have been grounded. The older models will likely be retired permanently. American Airlines, for example, has accelerated the retirement date of its 757s and 767s. Delta will probably ground its MD-80s and MD-90s for good. A Democratic version of the bill would have enforced strict environmental measures. That was stripped out of the final bill. However, the retirement of older aircraft is likely to mean a leaner and greener airline fleet going forward. The gas-guzzling E190s and MD-80s are likely to retire early. Their possible replacements, the Airbus 220 or the Boeing 737 MAX, if it ever returns to the sky, use 14 to 20% less fuel per passenger mile. While the economy will bounce back, travel will not be the same, at least for some time. It's quite likely that leisure travel will eventually return to pre-corona demand levels, but there is uncertainty around the future of business travel. Companies have been forced to adapt with innovative remote working strategies. That may convince some of them that using the now commonplace video calls may be better than paying for travel to in-person meetings. The thing we know for sure is that everyone's doing their best to limit the damage not only to the airline industry, but also to individuals and other businesses. Please subscribe to stay up to date with how the coronavirus is changing the industry.